The Tradie Underwear brand, now turning over $200 million a year, has gone from protecting the family jewels to branching out into everything from energy drinks to skincare to watches and tools. So hitch up your strides as Ben Goodfellow, the brand's founder, reveals how and why he's extending the brand into all sorts of categories, proving the Tradie isn't just keeping you supported downstairs, but they've got your back and your taste buds and a whole lot of other needs covered too. It's a pants-off episode 629 of the 13-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of elasticized marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours to grow. I do that through a weekly in-depth conversation with a successful business founder that's walked the path before us. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. So this happened. In the last week, I've been honoured to interview two incredible business owners of a calibre I never, ever expected to attract onto this show. Neither are the type you'd expect to hear from, but both delivered above and beyond what I could ever have wished for. The first one is Dennis Dunstan, Fleetwood Mac's manager from 1984 to 1997, and he's Mick Fleetwood's manager to this day. Referring to himself as the world's highest paid babysitter, Dennis has seen it all, from arranging a private jet so Lindsay Buckingham could enjoy his favourite takeaway, to making sure the band never missed a gig. He nearly succeeded. Dennis knows a thing or three about growing and managing a successful business. Now, his openness in taking us behind the scenes of the Fleetwood Mac business and personalities of the biggest rock group of the time was absolutely amazing. That episode drops April 25. My second amazing interview this week was with Layne Beachley, regarded as the most successful surfer ever. Layne's dedication to success saw her as the only surfer, male or female, to claim 6 consecutive world titles. In my up-close and personal chat with her, Layne opens up about the one big shift she made in order to achieve her world domination. And fortunately, it's something we can all apply to both our own businesses and personal lives. I already am. That episode drops May 2. Now, if you're a member of my exclusive business owner membership, you can access a video version of my chat with Layne. It goes for an hour over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. Plus, to my detriment, you'll also be able to watch a blooper reel of the same interview. I just could not nail my intro, and Layne was very gracious in understanding and supporting me until I got it right. You can watch that over in my membership as well. Membership starts from a tax-deductible $8.50 a month, where you'll also find a pic of Dennis and I, so that's a bit of fun. He actually came around to my home for the interview, which is kind of cool. Speaking of my membership, in the past couple of weeks, I've also uploaded for you a worksheet detailing 10 ways micro interactions make selling super easy. There's another new worksheet showing how to write the world's best logo brief. In fact, member Jason Foss left a comment stating, "Timbo, this is indeed marketing GOLD." You'll also find inside the membership 10 ways to use ChatGPT to market your business. There's a behind-the-scenes look at me doing my hobby. Hint, I host a radio show up Noosaway. There's a little video of that. You can grab a seat at my weekly Ask Me Anything webinar if you're a member. Plus, there's new content being added every week to help grow that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. Like I said, membership starts from a tax-deductible $8.50 a month. There's no lock-ins, and every bit of support helps as I work hard to create the most helpful and sometimes entertaining marketing resource for small business owners. You can join now over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. And you can also find a link in the show notes over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Speaking of joining, I would love to extend a warm welcome to my new members. So welcome Amira, Reid, Ellen Mashiri, Christian Steinbach, Ed Colgan, Tim Freeman, Bede Hunt, Todd, with no surname, Phil Patterson. To each of you, thanks a million for your support. It seriously means the world to me. And one more thing, I am heading off overseas at the end of this week. So over the coming weeks, expect some marketing updates and observations from the streets of Muscat. Where's Muscat? Paris, Rome, Florence, Milan, and more, both here on the podcast, plus some exclusive content will be added inside my membership. Righto, let's go meet today's very special guest. In 2010, Ben Goodfellow launched Tradie Underwear, going head-to-head with Bonds, one of Australia's most loved underwear brands, who, by the way, his old man worked for in marketing. From what appeared to be a brave move from the outside looking in, Tradie quickly established itself alongside much bigger brands like Bonds and Calvin Klien and would become a household name. No mean feat, as I'm sure you marketing aficionados would agree. Impressed by the brand's rise to fame, I chatted to founder Ben Goodfellow on this podcast about 5 years ago. At the time, the Tradie brand was about to crack $100 million in turnover and was using Nick the Honey Badger Cummins, a well-known Aussie rugby player, to front all its advertising. Now, one of my favourite quotes from that chat was Ben's definition of a brand as being something so powerful in the minds of your customers that they want to go to the pub and talk about it. Back in the early days, underpinning the Tradie brand were just a handful of SKUs. Basically, it was just men's, women's and kids' undies and some workwear. Fast forward to 2023 and Tradie has literally grown into an empire, full of categories for the entire family, including workwear, boots, baby wear, tools, drinks, food and beauty. You can now buy Tradie branded watches, protein bars, moisturisers, notebooks, glues, chalkboard paints, pyjamas and toolkits. Plus, they've partnered with some of Australia's most iconic brands, such as the Mighty VB or Victoria Bitter, for those not in the know. So now you can knock back an ice-cold green belly tin fish whilst relaxing in your VB branded Tradie undies, socks, shorts and T-shirt. What a sight. So why has the Tradie brand stepped beyond its original core offering? What is its core offering anymore? Has licensing other brands been a good move? Let's find out. Welcome back, Ben, to the Small Business Big Marketing podcast. And before we tackle the big questions of the day, how's business generally?
Thanks for having me back. It's great to chat again after all these years. How many years ago was it when I spoke to you last?
5, mate.
5 years.
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed. I think we all know there's been an interesting 3 years in there for sure.
Yeah, that's for everyone. But your business in particular, I've been watching it from afar and, you know, I am genuinely curious about a business that started off as one thing and has morphed into something bigger, different, more complex. I don't know. We'll get to that. But, mate, have you had a good 5 years?
I have. I've been really lucky. It's been an amazing ride. Mind you, I hear when you read out all the different products we're doing, I sound like an absolute basket case and a bit of a crazy man. But,
your words, not mine.
That's right. So there's a few random things in there. But, no, I must admit I've absolutely loved every minute of the last 5 years. I know some people would say the last 3 years has been challenging. But from my point of view, it's been really amazing seeing the brand really grow in awareness, but really grow in terms of personality with people. If that pub test that I talked to many years ago is still really relevant, if anything more relevant now. And when I talk to people about the brand, they immediately get a smile on their face. And so I know we've done a good job in the last 5 years to really create that Aussie larrikin brand that people relate to. So I think from my point of view, I've loved every minute of the journey, even though there's been some challenges along the way. I think that when you can see the progress being so positive, it's a fun ride. And, we don't have too many rules in this business, no red tape. So we can do anything. We can have a crack at anything, which is really, not everyone can do that.
There's not a governing underwear body.
No, there's not. There's no one. It's only me and my key staff that tell me, Ben, you've gone too far this time.
Yes. You were doing 100. You were about to crack 100 mil when we spoke 5 years ago. Can you share with us what turnover looks like these days?
Yeah. So now we cracked that, which was amazing, and now we're pushing for the 200, which is so it shows you in that 5 years we've really come along. We're become a really competitive beast in the underwear space, and then sort of layering it up with other categories as well. So and socks and whatnot, and all that sort of core product. So we're now shooting for the 200. I'm hoping we'll get there in the next couple of years. But I think it'll get a little bit harder just with the size of the Australian, New Zealand markets to really push to that level, just because, that's becoming pretty big in this small small space. And I think there's something to be said for not getting too big. There's sort of a sweet spot in terms of turnover. So I think we're getting close to that.
Geez, that's interesting. That's the old how much growth is enough. I mean, we're going through that, with the economy at the moment and people hurting with interest rate rises and the banks just getting smashed because of the record profits. Like, do you have not a point of view on banks and interest rates, but just about growth generally? It's very refreshing to hear you say, how much growth is enough.
Yeah, and I think that we've had an unusual amount of growth since the government sort of instigated a JobKeeper and all these different things, which were great measures at the time to really stop us from going into depression or recession or whatever I was budgeting for at the time. And it's kept us going, but we're now obviously feeling the impact of that with inflation and all sorts of things. And there's got to be a normalisation of demand. Our demand in our product category wasn't normal, it wasn't right. And we all sort of flew by the seat of our pants and accepted the sales and whatnot, and it's all good. But there's going to be a correction and a normalisation of demand, and I actually think that's a good thing. Whilst there's going to be some pain along the way, but I do think it wasn't sustainable to continue this amount of demand across so many product categories, and that's why we're all feeling pain in terms of, if you're building a house, you can't get wood, all sorts of things have become too expensive because the demand is just not normal. So I think there is a level of growth that is more sustainable and a level of demand that's more sustainable and allow us to, get more efficient supply chains, shipping, all those sorts of things. I would love to see a normalised world without a big bottoming out to get there.
It's all right for you to say that, mate. Everyone has to wear undies.
That's right. Yeah.
Demand will always be there, although we can stretch how often we replace those.
That's why I worked my ass off to get Tradie Undies into women's and kids.
Yes.
Because kids will grow out of them. Women like fresh underwear because they take a lot of pride in themselves. Men are lazy buggers.
Lazy, mate.
They'll just keep wearing the same stuff, and our stuff lasts too long. So it's hard to get the boys into new stuff.
Do you build? Oh, that's an interesting question, and you won't be able to tell the truthful answer here. But I was thinking about this with only yesterday with toothbrushes and razors. They build. What do you call it? They build deterioration, or I don't even know what the word is. Into their products. Do you build deterioration into your men's underwear?
No, definitely not. My competitors obviously do, but I definitely don't do that because I think when the new kid on the block, and I think I'll always have that attitude as a new kid on the block, we need to make sure that people are getting good quality. And it's interesting, the average Aussie punter knows good quality underwear, and they're more than willing to send me an abusive email to tell me if there's been an issue. So, and I look at all complaints. I get every
Ben,
single
can
one
you
of them.
please create a page on your website and post those anonymously? That would be hilarious. I love people making a stand on sort of things that aren't that important.
Oh, some people really know how to voice their opinions, let me tell you. And underwear's a funny one to hear about, but the good ones go on. There's a board here in the office. We put the good ones up. So we keep them private though.
One of the great things about what your brand stands for is that Aussie, laconic, Aussie kind of, don't give a shit kind of way. So, you could put that on your website and probably not receive too much heat from anyone.
Well, I think a lot of people would appreciate it because, we don't take things too seriously. You can see that in our brand messaging. You can see that in my style of how I like to do things with my team. And, we don't take it too seriously. So we can have some fun. And sometimes it's just a matter of working out how best to reply to people. You don't offend them, but you can kind of have a bit of fun as well.
Now, Ben, like I said in my little soliloquy opening, the brand has changed drastically, mate. You're selling protein bars and chalkboard paint and watches and moisturisers and everything in between. What does Tradie stand for in 2023?
Yeah, look, we're very aware of our core, which is great quality, great value with a real Aussie larrikin spin on it. And so we know that that's underwear, workwear, boots. We can't take our eye off the ball. We know that's where our bread and butter is. But we now are really interested in sort of expanding the brand into other things. And I think once you've got a really strong personality, and, I've been doing tradie for 14 years and I'm consistently market presenting that personality, and our marketing is consistent in that larrikin that comes through. I think that's when you can start to branch out and do other things without bastardizing the brand. But it's a fine line, and you'll find that some things I'll get into and get out of very quickly because they don't work or they don't relate to our customer. And so I think that's a big part of it. Yes, you can try different things, but you don't want to take your eye off the ball, the cash cow, or wherever you're getting your money from to do the new things. So if they don't work, get out of them. And if they do work, then go really hard at them. And I think we throw a lot of money like beauty, which has worked really well. Our body spray, our deodorants, we've gone really hard at that. We've marketed it. We've done new ads specifically to that. And we end up treating it like a new sort of world of its own compared to our underwear and clothing space. And I think that's how you do it. You got to test and try, and some of them will work, some won't.
Have you got the one-liner on what the brand stands for? Because it's a lot easier back then when it was just undies and workwear. But like, is it? Yeah. What is it?
To me, it's just I want to be an iconic Australian brand with a really clear larrikin personality. So if you see that Tradie logo on a product, you have a bit of a grin, but you also can trust it. So, we are very Aussie. We're very proud of that fact, and I think that people don't take us too seriously from a personality point of view, but from a product point of view, they do. Do I have that in one line? Probably not, but I know what we're trying to get to.
Does that matter? Am I just being a marketing wanker? And while you think about that, don't answer too quickly. Like, I was talking to a coaching client yesterday, one of my gold members in my membership, and he's in indoor plant design, and we were talking about the fact that he basically really what he does is make the workplace a great place to be. Because you add indoor plants and everything changes. And that's his sort of reason for being. What you described earlier, Aussie larrikin, not taken too seriously, that's sort of like that's the brand personality. Maybe you don't have that line anymore that what represents what Tradie stands for.
Yeah, probably not. I think as we're expanding, I think personality is key, and then as long as your quality of product and it's right and innovative and all those things that come along with it, I think we'll be fine. People often ask me, and I had someone recently say, the collab with VB was absolute genius, well done. Gosh, did you go through a 6-12 months process of really working through that, go to market research and go down that path? And I said, no, it just made sense to me. It's sort of my gut feeling is it's a really good tie-up. And I said yes within the day because it's a no-brainer. And so I don't think we overthink things, and maybe that's me sort of being entrepreneurial in that way. I don't go out to market research, and hopefully I don't make too many errors along the way, but we're pretty gung-ho, and I think that's what's allowed us to get to this point. So yes, you can be much more careful and do all your market research and all those sorts of things, and it certainly suits some businesses. But from my point of view, we move quick, and if it feels right in the gut, I go for it.
Wow.
Which is
good
not
on
for
you.
everyone.
No, certainly not. You wouldn't be getting away with that at Bonds, mate. You'd have to do some kind of 12-month, study.
For sure.
Customer facing, sit behind a few one-way mirrors and, see some research groups going on and all that kind of stuff.
We're a long way from that. And I think, we'll probably talk about it later, but when we launched Beauty, we signed up, an opportunity came about to launch our body spray, and we weren't specialists in that area. In fact, we had to learn a lot very quickly. Woolworths met with us a day before we flew out on a buying trip in February 2020, just before COVID really hit. And they called us when we were in Japan on our first destination and said, all right, we'll take it, but we need it in 6 weeks. Producing body spray from scratch and delivering in 6 weeks is pretty daunting, to say the least. So whilst we're on this 2-week buying trip overseas through Europe, we managed to get all our supply base sorted, or everything ready to be delivered, which is pretty remarkable for the volumes they need to fill 900 stores. And in the same time, I was like, well, shit, I need to go to market with ambassadors that are different to the honey badger and the underwear world, that are totally unique to beauty. So got on Instagram, was hammering around trying to work out who can I get, and I found the Inspired Unemployed. Now, everyone listening to this is going, no shit, the Inspired Unemployed are massive, but they weren't big at that stage. So,
I don't know them, but mate, 55-year-old man, I wouldn't have a clue.
They've blown up. So they've got, millions of followers. They're doing ads with Shaq these days. They've really moved on to bigger and better things. But basically, we signed them up within a week while I was overseas. We filmed as soon as we got back during a small break basically just before the cans went into store between lockdowns, and we went to air a week later. And I think that allowed us to go on to market with a brand new product on TV, and we'd done it all within 8-10 weeks, whatever it was. And I think that's definitely an advantage we have as a smaller business, but with a well-known brand. And when I don't have to go through a marketing sort of team to like really vet things, and we just went at it. And I had the theory if the response wasn't good, we could always pull it. But you only get a certain number of chances in your life to go into new categories and do new things. So you've really got to jump on them. So it was a pretty ridiculous thing we did, but it definitely worked.
The next question I have plays into exactly what you just explained. Why have you decided to expand into so many almost unrelated categories? And the penny dropped as you're talking about that body spray project. To me, it looks like you're a business owner who has a brand you love, who loves what you do, and looks for fun things to do. Hey, let's do body spray. Hey, let's get a watch category going. Let's see how that goes. And like, don't put too much thought in it. Don't overwhelm, and just do it. Put it to market. Sharpen your, what do they say? Sharpen your sword on the stone of the market and see what they come back with.
Absolutely.
That's you, mate.
Yeah. And look, you don't just throw crap at people. You've got to, like, I'm like the watches, for instance, we got approached by a watch business to do that under license, but we worked so closely with them to design the packaging. How can we make it look really fun and different, and selecting the watches and everything. So you've got to do everything well. There's a couple of random products you listed, but which are not as key to us, but certainly like the beauty is a key category.
Chalkboard paint?
Yeah, we'll ignore that one, but there's more background to that. But whereas there's key ones. Your beauty is right up there as our number 2 category. Then you go into watches and those sorts of things, accessories, sunglasses. They make sense to tie on, and you've seen other brands do that over the journey, and they are really great products. Like we put a lot of effort into how's the packaging look and all the rest. Don't just slap it together and go because I get excited about it. We sit down as a group and we really try and work through it. The thing is, we can work through things pretty quickly though, because there's no red tape.
Yeah. I'm going to push a little bit further there, and
Sure.
I'd like to hear the chalkboard paint story. And I might be too sensitive to this because I'm a marketing guy. I'm a consumer. I love the Tradie brand. I like talking to you. So there's sort of stuff going on here, which I want to be as objective as I can. When I went to the Tradie website the other day and looked at everything on offer, part of me, and I say this with respect, was I on Alibaba? Or was I on the Tradie brand?
Yeah.
Was I shopping? Was I able to buy, 2,000 of those watches at a super cheap price that I then go and sell? Or is this actually a watch at Reid? Is that a fair comment?
No, I mean, that's something that we've got to be really careful of. And certainly you'll find that we're hiding a few products down there because what I'm doing is I guess, a bit more testing than what I've admitted to earlier. Just Tradie eventually get into the hardware space and become a tool brand, a paint brand, potentially not paint, right? So that chalkboard paint is very much just a test and see. Now, my gut tells me we're not going down that path of paint, but I sure as hell want to have the knowledge around it as we evolve as a brand and we look to license into new categories. If I'm not going to do it myself, I want to have a bit of an understanding. So if I meet with someone that's a specialist in paint, for instance, which I'm not saying is our next category by any means, you've picked out a very unusual one.
Well, it's the one that stands out, mate, like dog's balls.
Yeah. Look, it's one I hoped you wouldn't have seen before we caught up. And so to me, at least, I've got some knowledge of that. And so, from my point of view, that's not where we want to go. We've got other things to progress with. And that might be drinks, for instance, that just makes more sense post-beauty. What is that? And so you've got to have a little bit of understanding. As much as I say we move quick and go for it, I still like to have a bit of an idea of each category class, how it works, learn a bit about it. So that I do meet with an expert, I've still got a bit of an idea myself.
Yeah, got it. So, okay, that's interesting. So there's a testing element to this.
For sure.
Hide it in the back blocks, just see what happens. If by some miracle, chalkboard paint, and sorry to bang on about that, but it is the smoky. If it all of a sudden, for some reason, we just sell a whole lot of it, it's like, oh, hang on.
Yeah, there might be some links to this.
There might be some links to this, and then we'll chase that one down.
And then I really think about it from a brand point of view. Do I want to be in paint and associated to that when clearly we've got such a fun personality? Maybe not the right class, but you don't know until you try. And whereas tools, I think, would really relate. There's a DIY guy that would really love a great quality product that has the Tradie brand on it. And certainly people have approached us. Are we doing it at the moment? No, but we're certainly getting our head around it. But you don't want to slap your brand on absolutely everything. So we don't want to be an Alibaba, that's for sure. And there's certainly people with my team are like, let's not do anything stupid. That's why you can test little bits. But when we go, you'll know. So when we really go at a class, you'll see. So beauty, it's really clear. We're doing TV. We're in major stores. Absolutely going at it, whereas some of the other things you've listed are very much just hidden on our website, doing their thing so we can sort of test it and understand. Because there's got to be a journey here. Some things I really want to do myself in this business because I love the challenge of taking on something new, but other things will be a license out to other people and other things we will not do.
Do you run the risk of damaging the brand? Have you at all in this journey of adding categories damaged the brand in any way that you know of?
Not at this stage, because I think we're only known for the underwear, workwear, boots and body spray is what's new, that new beauty category. So I haven't rushed the third category as such. I know you've picked up a few things, but they're really on our website at this stage, right? In the testing area for you not to see before an interview like this.
Good luck, mate. It's called the internet. It's a public thing. I'll show you later. All you need is a browser.
Yeah, please walk me through it. Look, I think as long as you pick a category and go after it really hard for 1 or 2 or 3 years, then you can be known for it, and it's not sort of a ridiculous just slap it on everything. And the minute we start being known for just slapping tradie on everything, it's a disaster. Plus, I'm trying to get ambassadors that really fill into a certain world, which might be the apparel world, the beauty world. If we get into another area, and let's say it was tools, which is not necessarily the next one, we would go after that in a really big way, and we would get ambassadors that really suit that space, and we would do a different looking at it and feel, and we'd absolutely go after it, and we'd have it in a major retailer. So I think as long as you really separate your worlds and treat them differently, you can get away with it, but you're sure as hell got to pull out quickly if they're not working.
And by worlds, do you mean categories?
Categories, yeah.
And so with categories, so like you were blessed. 14 years ago, you launched Tradie, you find the honey badger, the rugby player that we've all grown to know and love, even if you're only an AFL supporter. It was a great TV campaign, which found its way onto the backs of buses and transport and all that kind of stuff. 14 years ago, you could do that. Again, I'm showing my age here. I don't watch. If I watch TV, it's YouTube or a streaming service.
Yep.
I don't watch free-to-air TV, except my best mate's son is on Australian Idol at the moment, right?
Okay.
So every night, mate, I'm on Idol. And I can't believe it. I counted 11 ads. In one ad break, I counted 11 ads.
Yeah,
and then we went back into Idol, and they still had a couple of sponsor billboards before they got back into the show. So we'll call it 13 ads. No wonder people are turning away from TV, from broadcast television. How are you? What's your big lever? Is it still broadcast TV and just buying really selectively, like The Bachelor and Idol and Survivor? Or are you going, no, we're going to work a lot harder in this fragmented media world these days to build a brand?
Yeah, it's incredibly cluttered. I think you comment on 11 spots within an ad break is showing you how cluttered it is, plus most people are streaming. It is definitely more challenging. I think last week I made the comment to my wife that, it'd be hard to start this brand again and really get the momentum we did, because it's hard to talk to enough Australians easily. And I think social media, everyone bangs on about how good is this, but that's even more cluttered. It's the algorithms and how they serve them to people. And I know it certainly suits some businesses that are very heavily online, but if you really want to appeal to the mainstream that's still shopping in bricks and mortar and a bit online, TV was a great way to do that. So, I still believe in it in a big way. I'm just very selective in what we do. So we went down sport just while I'm trying to target men in a major way and families. So mums and kids at the same time. We'll do a lot of Sunday sponsorships of NRL, AFL. And so we went down the sports path, because there's no question that with live sport, you're still getting enormous buy-in compared to other programs. You have to pay for it. It's definitely more expensive. So again, starting a brand would be really difficult to get into that. But by sponsoring a Sunday NRL for the whole season, AFL, you get billboards, and you really can cut through the clutter, because there's extra spots, brought to you by Tradie. And I always have a laugh. It's brought to you by McDonald's and Bunnings and then Tradie. And it's kind of bizarre.
That's great, isn't it?
Here's my little brand.
Well, mate, $200 million turnover. I mean, slouch, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, we still a small business in comparison to those big guys, and I think we always will be. But, it's a nice feeling seeing that there, but it helps you break through the clutter, but it means you do really need to invest. And early on, I wouldn't have been able to afford that amount of marketing. So you've got to be really sensible at the moment, but I do think you've got to pick the cult programs for your Married at First Sight, your Love Islands, and your American Idol, Australian Idol, if that's what you want, because you're still going to get 600 really passionate viewers around the country that really love it. So my view's always been to sponsor a program for the whole season rather than do spot buys, because people there's too much noise. They're on their phones while they're watching TV. So you need to get that extra, brought to you by, plus the ads, plus you're in every single show. So there's a lot more recall. I would say you're going to brainwash people a lot more if you hit them over the head for a full 2 months or 3 months of a program, as opposed to just buying a few spots. So I think that's worked really well for us, and we'll continue to do it in that way.
From what I understand, some of those ads you see on the Super Bowl, you'll actually only ever see on telly on the Super Bowl once. And then the hope is that social media picks them up and everyone sees them 1,000 times. I think that's the truth. Is there a strategy here where you go and create what you would call a viral piece of advertising, run it once on TV, all the marketing, all the business media pick it up, all the consumers pick it up, and everyone's just resharing it on social media, but you've only ever played it once on television?
Look, I think that's the dream, and that's all marketers' dream. I just don't think the minute you try and make something viral, it won't go viral. There's got to be a little bit of arse and accident involved, I think. And my first ever ad with the Honey Badger did go viral in terms of we got 1 million unpaid for views or organic views on Facebook, which was a huge amount for us at that stage. I think a lot of other underwear brands sort of copy our voice a little bit now, so they're less likely to go viral. And and we're not doing amazing new things that were simple like that. So I think the minute you try for viral, you're stuffed. So I think you've got to still create something that's got longevity. If it goes viral, it's a bonus, because I've got to create ads that I know I can still push through long-term sponsorships, and that's what I go in there to do. If it then ends up getting the viral element, which the Inspired Unemployed ads did get, because I came up with the idea of the big sniff, which was so revolting that people shared it. You need to watch the ads and you'll appreciate it.
I have to, mate. I've got it. I got it already.
He was like, let's get two random blokes sniffing each other's pits. I mean, that's so disgusting. It must smell so good, this body spray. And I had to pitch it into my team that makes my ads, and they were like, that's revolting. You'll get complaints. But it worked. It went viral, right? So I think you've got to come up with something a bit like that, but you can't always do that. Yeah. So I don't think you can just go for the viral element. You've got to make something great that you really love that you can use in a major sponsorship. Otherwise, it just goes nowhere. You can't guarantee it.
100%.
Anyway.
What's your level of courage around all this, Ben? The minute you get, I've worked in advertising for 12 years, and some of these clients, they get one letter. They might get 100 letters saying that's the best piece of advertising I've ever seen, and one says that I'm completely disgusted, and we have to rip it off the air. What's your level? Do you have one, or you just go, nah, don't care?
Look, I'm on a first name basis with the Ad Standards Board in Australia. They're wonderful. They're so nice. They give me heads up in advance. This one's coming, man, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I expect it. So I rate out the success of our ads by how many complaints I get without being unreasonable. Yeah, they're a little bit of a badge of honour. We had one ad that didn't get really any complaints, and we're like, geez, did we stuff that ad up? So we want to push the boundaries a little bit. We don't want to offend anyone by any means, but we do want to make a little bit of noise so that some really conservative people are not truly in love with it. That means we're getting the cut through. And we don't want to be boring. And I think you've got to offend a couple of people to make something really humorous, because everyone's got a different sense of humour. So no, I don't mind pushing the boundaries. I think you've got to.
Good on you.
Yeah, that's part of the fun.
100%, mate. In a world of noise, how else can you get noticed? And I don't mean, and we're not talking about pushing the boundaries to be silly for silly's sake, but, we can be so careful these days. And even now I'm like going, geez, be careful what you say, Timbo, because you'll upset someone. We've become pretty vanilla, which, as I say that, creates an incredible opportunity for people like you with guts to stand out.
Absolutely. And look, you can always pull an ad. We never have one ad running. We've got lots of versions.
Yes.
And so if one really becomes an issue, then pull it. But I think you've got to make some noise and have a bit of fun with them. And if you're going to make people laugh, I do think you've got to push the boundaries a little bit. So, it's all part of it. And I think that's what I've signed off on 3 ads with The Storm this morning before we did this podcast for our body spray range, which we filmed on Friday of last week. And they're going to push the boundaries a little bit, not too bad compared to what we've done. But the comment came up, how many complaints do you think you're going to get about this one? And I laughed and said, I hope we get a few, because it means it's a good ad, and I love it. So it's definitely part of our DNA. But we certainly don't want to alienate people. But I'm a privately owned business. I really don't need to sell it to everyone. I've reached a level that I'm really happy with. I want to keep growing, sure, but I understand that not everyone's going to love us, and that's totally fine.
I did promise listeners that we'd be talking about expanding into unrelated categories of an established brand. So let's get back into that, although I thoroughly enjoyed that part of the chat. In terms of manufacturing all the products that you now have beyond underwear and workwear, so the watches and the protein bars and the toolkits, etc., are you just literally sourcing you're not making any of that, you're not manufacturing that stuff, you are sourcing best product and whacking your name on it?
Yeah, so we innovate with the factories we deal with, and we develop it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, for sure. So anything new, we still develop with them, build a relationship, but it's not local manufacturing necessarily. Like protein bars is a local manufacturer, the drinks is a local manufacturer. The drinks took me 12 months to develop at least. They're just around the corner in Oakley, and very much on board for the journey and very excited about it. So some things are Australian-based, some things are overseas, some things are Cambodia, some things are China. It really just depends on the specialty and what the factory does, and then we try and deal with one and really develop it and make it our own.
I hear terrible stories about factories in China and Vietnam and, various, big boxes arriving feeling super heavy, but they're full of bricks. You had any bad experiences? Because you bring in all sorts of products from all parts of the world.
Look, we got a good sourcing team, that's for sure. So we check, no question that COVID's made it harder. And you probably find I haven't done as much new things since COVID hit because we're not able to get on a plane and go to China or wherever it is. So that's why you're seeing a protein bar Australian made. That's why you're seeing drinks Australian made, because I was able to drive to the factories and really look through the production and make sure it's all good. Whereas some of the other new things will have been done just prior to COVID. So you really want to be careful with it. And not because you're getting sent bricks. I must admit, I think China's beyond that these days.
Yeah.
It's more just the quality and the refinement and making sure you're really happy with it. But, we're not shipping anything until we're seeing prototypes, shipping samples and everything, because we're in no great rush. This is, particularly the ones that you've listed off, these are not emergency products like the body spray was, that we can actually still take our time and get it right.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick body spray story.
Yep.
Unrelated, but it's a fun story. It's marketing related.
Sure.
I was working at Clemenger's. One of my clients was Gillette. They launched Dufour, which was the body spray for young boys going up against Lynx. It was Gillette's version of Lynx. Hopeless product. It's just water and a bit of flavoured alcohol spray, whatever it was essential oil. Anyway, the kids loved it. Gillette sent me up to Sydney with a camera guy to wander the nightclub streets on a Saturday night and interview young men about their thoughts on body spray. So I'm walking up Elizabeth Bay Road in King's Cross midnight one Saturday night with a camera guy, drawing all sorts of attention and just interviewing young blokes. What do you think of body spray, boys? You got any on at the moment? Do you wear up? Just that kind of questions. It were the vox pops, that we could then go back to Gillette and say, hey, look, an informal research study shows this. Anyway, these two girls approached us on Elizabeth Bay Road in King's Cross. And for those who don't know, this is the sort of red light district. These girls weren't working ladies. They were hostesses. They were the cabin crew on Virgin Australia. They said, what are you doing with the camera? I said, blah, blah. And they said, you should interview Richard Branson. I said, I'd absolutely love to interview Sir Richard. Where is he? They said, he's over there. And he was across the road sitting in the beer garden of the Holiday Inn, surrounded by women. And I said to my camera guy, I said, look, we've got to do this. I mean, this is just a fun thing. It'll blow Gillette away. God, how'd you get Richard Branson on this research study? Blah, blah. Anyway, I don't like going up to public figures, but I made an exception to this bloke.
Absolutely.
I said, g'day, Richard, this is what we're doing. Do you mind if I get your points of view on body spray? Which is a stupid question to ask him.
He would have loved it.
But he said, yeah. He said, yes, sit down. So I'm sitting down with my camera guy, surrounded by women in a beer garden in King's Cross. And then I lost his attention, and he just went back talking to the women and flirting and doing all that kind of stuff. I said, Sir Richard, could we start? And he said, yeah, sorry. Okay, girls, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. And he threw a glass of champagne all over me. And I'm like, this is embarrassing. And I was just a bit shocked and taken aback.
Yeah.
And then he sort of, in his own inimitable way, just said, I'm sorry, old fellow, let's get on with it. And he was just showing off to the women. Anyway, that's my Richard Branson story.
Wow. I hope he gave you some good answers after that.
I don't know. I said, mate, I felt like saying, listen, you might have to pay my mortgage. I'd hate to have to sue you. So we come to an agreement here.
Well,
anyway, I digress.
Well, he's done a great job of slapping Virgin on absolutely everything. So
he's an absolute master at it. And probably why he saw a little bit of, he said, like, why not do it? Although I still don't, the throwing of the champagne was stupid.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Well, not move on, but you were also licensing some brands. VB is probably your biggest, and that does make a lot of sense.
Yep.
The licensing process, easy, expensive, risky.
Well, the best license to take is when they approach you. So VB was a really amazing collab because they're looking to do fun things with young brands, or iconic Australian brands. So they did some great things with the Volley VB shoes. Now I know that's not a young brand, but it was pretty cool. And Volleys come in fashion every now and again.
They do, don't they?
Yeah, they come.
There's a great podcast somewhere on that. A brand that had died and then came back because one rapper, I think, wore them or something.
There you go. It's impressive. They never die, and they're a great Aussie sort of shoe. So they did it there, and they're looking for other brands that they can sort of tie in with that have got the young, fun sense of humour, I guess, because a lot of VB drinkers will be older, but it's got such an amazing, iconic Australian heritage to it, amazing advertising. So it certainly helps when they approached us, and I was chuffed that a brand as fantastic as VB with such a great personality contacted us. They're fantastic to deal with because as much as anything, it's not just about the cost, and it's not a big cost. It's actually more about the execution and making sure the tie-up works for both brands, and it's fun, like a great product. So they've been awesome to deal with.
How do you do that? Give us an example of how do you make sure, because on paper, VB, working man's beer, Tradie, working man's brand. But how do you just make sure that it's a marriage made in heaven, that both brands are getting what they want?
All comes down to the people that are working on it and dealing together. So the rep that I deal with from VB is just fantastic and understands and gets it. And it's not too precious about things. And so we can make it happen. And that's the way we work. There's no red tape, as I always say, and we can get things done quickly. And he was in that same mentality, even though it's such an enormous business. So we're able to get it right, go to market, the product we all agreed on. So it wasn't a super painful experience, which they can be sometimes. And then in terms of the royalty rate, it was absolutely fine, no problems at all compared to some licensing.
How does that work? Can you share numbers, or if you can't, just make it? I'm just interested, what's the royalty rate look like?
Well, they can vary anywhere from 5 to 20%, but it really depends on if, when I'm dealing directly. So the beauty of working with VB, it's in-house. So they're much more realistic of what they're wanting for a product, and they understand that different categories should be lower than others or a bit higher, because they understand that different products have different margins. So you can really get screwed by the licensing businesses, because they're like used car salesmen. Sorry if you're listening, but
so these are agencies that represent brands to get licensed with other brands. Yeah, middlemen.
Correct, and that's what they do. And you can understand they've really got to hustle and get the brands out there. And when a brand is hot and front of mind, they've really got to get as much money as they possibly can for it. So they're really difficult to deal with. So I prefer to stay away from those brands. If Frozen 4 comes out, or whatever it is, I'll be staying away from that one.
What is it?
Let's say Frozen, or one of the Disney ones. It's huge.
Yeah.
And then that's not necessarily for tradie. Wouldn't touch it, because you know that they're going to be really difficult to deal with, and think it's the greatest thing that ever existed. Whereas I'm more about the evergreens. So we've been working with Where's Wally for 8 years, and it's a really random one. You think, why on earth is tradie working with Where's Wally? But you got to remember, there's a real cheeky sense of what we like to do. And when Wally approached us, to me, that's hilarious, trying to find little Wally on your underpants. And so it's almost like it's a gag which suits our tradie personality. Even if you actually look at the two, you're like, this is so silly, but it's the humour that comes about. And if you look at our socials, there's a character that posted a funny video of holding up his Where's Wally undies, and he said, whoever came up with this is the greatest legend of all time, because I've been wanting girls to look in the general region of my crutch all my life, and finally I found the reason. And that's the humour that we allowed. So that's an evergreen that no one else wanted. But for me, straight away, I knew we wanted Where's Wally. So I think you got to find the ones that relate to your personality, or relate to a gag, or whatever it is. It doesn't need to be the big blockbuster movie that's just come out, or whatever it might be. And then they're much more reasonable to deal with.
You've just given me a great idea. I'll have to ask permission to be able to share it with past guest. I've forgotten his name. I think his name is Adam. He is the owner of Budgie Smugglers.
Yes, great brand.
Great brand.
Yeah, love it.
And a great fellow. And oh my goodness. So Where's Wally for you guys is a brilliant idea on undies, but that all happens behind closed doors. If someone's going to look at your crutch trying to find Wally, it's going to be one person behind closed doors, right?
For sure.
Budgie Smugglers on the beach, mate. I can see myself now standing on Noosa Main Beach, just surrounded by women, just trying to find Where's Wally.
And you just got to hope it's in the right spot, depending where we've cut the fabric. So I think Budgie does some great collabs as well. I've got a lot of time for them.
Yes,
I think wonderful brand.
Well, they did VB.
Yes, yeah, that's true. They've done VB. I think there's this crossover in personalities between Budgie and Tradie. There's elements of larrikinism, which is great.
Do you know him?
Oh, I met him in London once at a mate's house party, believe it or not. And he didn't know that I owned Tradie, because I didn't want to go into it. We were just chatting away, and he's just a great guy. And his story was fantastic. So he probably doesn't remember me.
He got handed it almost. The founder was Kevin Rudd's media guy. Rudd becomes Prime Minister. Media Budgie Smuggler founder has to go off and be all political, and gives it to Adam, or whatever his name was.
And then look, Adam's done a great job, because he's built a very clear, cheeky Aussie brand name, which is why I've got so much respect for what he's done. So I think at some stage he and I have to catch up for a beer, just out of respect, because he's done such a great job.
100%, mate. I'll be happy to. Can I ring him and talk about Where's Wally?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, go for it.
I love it. I have to do it before this episode comes out, so no one else uses that idea.
That's true.
That's brilliant. Any licensing ideas that haven't worked for you?
Oh gosh, I needed to prepare for that one. I can't say. We haven't done a ridiculous amount like I say, I go for the evergreen. So Chupa Chups is really fun because throwing lollipops on your undies is a bit cheeky and fun and really bright, so it ties in. I've done Solo in a can spray, which instead of being the thirst crusher, it became the sweat crusher. That to me made sense because the Solo man was always so iconic. Even if youngsters don't know him, it's got a sort of a nostalgic brand identity. So I can't think off the top of my head. If by the end of this interview, I'll try and think of something. There's got to be something. It was a dog.
Yeah, well, I reckon, and again, all respect, Ben, you're a big boy and, we have good chats. I was going to ask you about Solo. I wasn't sure whether that was a tradie idea.
Yeah.
I walked past that in the supermarket. It may have even instigated the idea for this interview.
Yep.
And I walked past that and gone, whoever that is are kidding themselves. You want me to spray deodorant under my arm, onto my body with Solo, a sticky, lemony soft drink. That is a big fail from Timbo.
All right.
And yet you're telling me it works.
Geez, this is a much tougher interview than last time.
It's much tougher, mate. We don't pull any punches here. This is the current affair of business podcasts.
Oh, I tell you, my gut told me it was a cracking idea when I saw it. I was like, we want to do a collab in the deodorant space.
What a fool.
And I guess I was a fool. But the good news is it's the best seller we've got in our range out of 5 fragrances by far. And it's just survived another deletion at Woolworths. Every 6 months they go through a range review. It's an absolute star. People are loving it. It doesn't.
Wow.
It's not sticky and it doesn't smell like lemon.
I knew it wouldn't be sticky, but perception-wise.
No, I agree. But it's the inquisitiveness of the people. So you would look at it and go, that's a silly idea. The other person goes, holy shit, it looks just like a can of Solo. What could it smell like? I've got to give it a go. So that and maybe it's got a 12-month lifespan and maybe it's got more, but certainly got 12 months in it because it's survived the first 6-7 months and really well. It's our number one. Then I would say at the back end of this next 6 months, that novelty will wear off and it'll start to pull back to our regular fragrances. But, now people are going to love it because it's got a great scent that is not related to Solo. And so people will now that's the one they want to go to. And guys are pretty lazy. If that works, they'll keep going back to it.
Did you say the scent it doesn't smell like Solo?
No, we just chose a real masculine scent that we really like. So it's
that's even weirder.
I think when we interviewed last time, it was every product should be a billboard. And what a great way to create a billboard out of a product like this, that Solo can that you noticed. Yes, you didn't want to buy it, but other people were like, how could you miss that? When you're comparing to other brands that are black cans, you got your big players like Lynx, you've got your Beckham's number 2 and we're number 3 in the space. And we've only been there for 2-3 years. We're the young upstarts. How on earth are we third? Because we're catching attention. And if the product's then good, they're going to keep buying it. So we've got to keep doing fun things. And we've got a few.
That's an incredible marketing case study, Ben. I mean, in all seriousness, it shouldn't work. I might buy it just out of shits and giggles and to try it with no faith that it was going to work. I would expect it to smell lemony because it's Solo.
Agreed.
You're telling me it doesn't.
Yep.
I certainly didn't expect it to be sticky. I can imagine buying it once and never buying it again. But you're telling me that maybe there is this curiosity, I am going to buy it, and then I try it, and it's actually really good. So repeat purchase.
I think that's what's happening. I think that's a big part of it. That's why I think within 12 to 18 months, it will die off a bit, but the product itself is really good and it's got a great scent that men are liking. So, but when you're the new kid on the block, you got to do things to make noise, and shelf space is so valuable in supermarkets. How do you do that? Now, our cans are really bright compared to our competitors, but you still got to try and introduce newness. And luckily the buyer at Woolies had the courage to do it because a lot of people would have the same sort of idea as you that this is silly. We don't need this. It's either tradie or not. But, it's proven that they now want a second collab from me, which I'm working on at the moment because they need the next thing. So what is that?
What is it? Coke?
Well, I think Pepsi got thrown at me the other day as a potential. There's all sorts, but it's, we haven't spoken to Coke. It's a matter of working with someone that's easy to work with. A lot of these businesses need 6-12 months to turn them around, whereas when a Woolies needs a new fragrance, you need to turn it around with 6 weeks. So we've always got fragrances ready to go, but getting a big company to sign off on something like that is challenging, which is why the Solo team is so good to deal with because they jumped on it really quick.
Is there a licensing idea that scares the pants off you that you think, gosh, how can we make this happen?
How can we make this happen? Gosh, there's always different things popping up into my head. I can't think of it off the top of my head now.
How do you manage that? You're an ideas guy, obviously. Do you have, and you're running a big company, do you have a certain person that follows you with a big broom and sweeps up after you?
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm not that big a wanker, so I still carry my own notebook.
I mean, it shouldn't be wankerish, but I mean, the reality is you are a guy with heaps of ideas. What do? Do you just open up the voice memo on your phone and capture the idea? Do you have a quick email to someone to say, hey, what do you reckon about this?
Yeah,
How do you know?
Yeah, I'm on emails till midnight, 1 a.m. every night. So as things are popping into my head, I'm just...
Talk about wankers.
Yeah, I'm just too much on my phone. But my mind doesn't stop. If anything, it's an issue. I had major insomnia for a really long time because you just can't turn it off. Once the cogs start turning, it's like there's a product idea, but then the advertising idea comes through, then the business plan comes through, and then every element of it comes through until I've got to get up the next day and you haven't slept. So it's a really difficult thing that, I've worked on. Melatonin's changed my life for anyone out there that's suffering the same thing.
Me too.
Absolute game changer because eventually it should knock you out. And then always have a few sleeping pills in the drawer ready to go on those nights you really can't turn it off, which was last night, for instance. And, it's constant, but I think you need that outlet. People always talk about having a notepad and pen beside your bed, which I do. But the main thing is I just send an email so I don't forget it. And then I've got notes on my phone as well. So I've got the notes app within your phone that's just full of ideas. Wherever I go, whenever I go, I'm putting things in there, if it's not an email or it can be both. Because some of them are amazing ideas, but they can leave your head quite quickly. So you need something to touch base on and just look back at. And it's the only way you're going to shut down the mind if you have that entrepreneurial sort of ideas spirit. It's one of the most difficult things, honestly.
I understand, mate. I fully, I have a lot of empathy for you as not a good sleeper. Not someone who lies there just bouncing ideas around. I'm just not a great sleeper. An anxiety sufferer, so that kind of doesn't help. And it's, you could be as tired as buggery at 10 or 11 at night, hop into bed, party on. Wide awake,
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm getting too personal, Ben,
Right.
but it is an important subject, and you and I are not alone in this, this condition. So I think it is good to talk about it. Do you hop into bed knowing that you are not going to go to sleep and then just frustrate yourself by, having all those ideas bounce around, or you just don't go to bed or do you need to go to bed in order for this to happen?
Yeah, I've learned that bedtime is a routine. So the earlier you can get in there, and keep it as a routine. And certainly when I was younger, I would be still staying up thinking of things till midnight, 1 a.m. But I think you've got to get into bed and start trying your best to get that process going of winding your mind down, and taking your melatonin, and then maybe within an hour and a half, you actually have a chance of falling asleep. Whereas if you try to get into bed at 11 o'clock, because that's when you want to go to sleep, you've got Buckley's chance, and you might then get to midnight, 1 a.m, but by that stage you're frustrated. So I think there's something, and that's a work in progress, make no mistake, I'm no good at that. But I'm certainly trying to get into bed earlier and earlier just to try and start that process. And I think it gives you a much better chance of then actually getting that sleep. And then just be really careful of what you look at before bed. So last couple of nights I've had a shocker because I'm a bit disappointed with the way one of my things has come out from a marketing point of view. And so I just can't get it out of my head how I can fix it. And I'm trying to fix it, and it just is consuming my mind. But I'm looking at that email at 8 p.m. at night, and so that triggers me, and I cannot. And because we've been filming ads and we've been signing off on ads, I haven't been able to catch up on all my day-to-day tasks. So 8 p.m. seems like a pretty logical time to catch up on things, but really dangerous because if you've got 200 emails to catch up on from the day, I'm pretty sure, given who we deal with, there's going to be 2, 3, 10 challenging ones that are going to either frustrate me, anger me, or really get me thinking. And so if you do that before bed, you're absolutely stuffed. And I know that then I've got Buckley's chance of falling asleep before 2 or 3. So you got to be sensible. You got to know your buttons and try and stay away from them as much as you can.
Are you a control freak?
You'd have to ask my team about that. I don't think I am. I think I get pretty obsessed on things. In a fun way, I really want to do something and I've really got ideas and let's go for it. But I'm very willing to listen to people. And I've got a lot of amazing trusted people around me which have been on the journey for 10 years. My brand manager, 8 years, my production manager, 15 years. And we're all about the same age. They're probably a little bit younger than me, which means they're in their sort of mid-30s. And we've been on the journey together. We've learnt together. And so they're not afraid to tell me, like, give it up. And then I really entrust my good people. My production manager, she's on top of everything. I completely trust her. So I'm not a control freak. So no, I don't think I'm a control freak at all, but I certainly like being across everything, which I know contradicts that comment. But I certainly...
You figure that one out.
Yeah, I don't know. I very much empower people around me, though, and empower them to give me their opinions for sure.
How do you do that? Do you have a verbal conversation with them? Do they just pick up on the fact? Is it something that's part of their recruitment?
Oh, no, all the time. So I bring them into my office, or I go to them and I sit them down, and I very rarely make a decision off my own bat. It's a collab, all decisions in this place, so that you can hear a different opinion. And I get swayed very much. So I think often my first opinion is often wrong. I've got to sleep on it as best I can, and I need to hear from the other people that I really trust that have been with me a long time. And I think that's helped us get to the journey. So you don't always need to shoot from the hip, but I think you still need to move pretty quick.
I feel like you need a mini me. Not me, like you need a mini Ben.
Oh, I've got amazing account managers and all the rest. I probably don't want to talk them up too much, otherwise people will start trying to poach them. But
yeah, that's right.
But they've been with me, like I say, my brand manager's been with me for 10 years, and so we bounce a lot of stuff off each other, and or maybe 8 years. So I think as long as you've got really good people around you, I think the biggest risk for an entrepreneur is if you don't have people you trust around you and you're in your room on your own making tough decisions, you're absolutely stuffed. And you've got to make a lot of decisions. So you've got to bounce them off people that you trust, and they've got to be confident enough to tell you when you're being an absolute moron. And that happens a lot here.
As a completely unrelated question, your website domain, Tradie, TRADIE.com, would be worth a fair amount of dough right now. 6-letter domain?
Yeah, I actually don't know. There's a story that goes with that as well. I was so obsessed with the brand when I started it and trying to build it up. I think first year we did $100,000 or whatever it was. But I saw that Tradie.com was on an auction site in America, being auctioned at 4:30 a.m. or something like that. So I stayed up the whole night. So I was ready to go because I couldn't miss that. And I bid on it and I bought it for $500.
No.
Or US, so I don't know the time what that was worth. But it's ridiculous, right? But it's just because I put the effort in, and probably to Americans it wasn't worth a lot. So, and then we're trying to build it up even more. So it was a great buy, but it's, again, just keeping your eye out for things and really going at it. Now, did I think it was going to cost $500? No, I thought it would be a lot more. But it's now a very valuable asset to our business.
Well, putting aside the fact that there's a business behind it, I would have thought as a domain by itself, naked, if you know what I mean, would have to be worth over $1 million.
I have no idea. We get contacted every now and again, but I think people in Australia know we're quite a big brand now, so I'm not going to sell it. So right. It's
just one of those little things I'm fascinated by.
But it's a good thing, it is. You've got to type everything when you're thinking of a brand. You've got to try and type everything at the time to make your brand legit. And we had tradieworkwear.com.au because I knew that I didn't want to just be an underwear brand. I needed to expand to other things. So tradieworkwear.com.au was an important one, and .com. But I knew that if I could get the abbreviated domain like Tradie.com, that was the big win. That's what sets us up to be a truly great brand that can then move into other categories, because we're not limited to underwear, workwear, whatever it is. So harder and harder to do now. My story was just, I got a bit lucky, but went at it like we normally do.
Good on you, mate. Hey, Ben, awesome to chat, brother, again. Great catch up. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for allowing me to ask incredibly hard questions, being the journo that I am.
No problem at all.
And I hope we can talk again in 5 years and see where this empire is heading.
Sounds good. Always happy to chat.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Timbo.
How good was that? He's such a generous founder, is Ben Goodfellow, always willing to share his business and marketing insights, his mistakes and his wins. Love it. If you need some new undies, and I mean, who doesn't, then head over to tradie.com, TRADIE. Get a watch and some paint, some energy drink, protein bar as well while you're there. And if you'd like to hear my first chat with him from a few years ago, then search for episode 455. It's a great tale of how he went and created a household name from scratch, and he really did. What caught your attention? I'd love to know. Give the hotline a buzz and share your thoughts with the rest of us on 0480 015 150. Leave your business name for a little bit of gratuitous self-promotion. Righto, it's time to take action on whatever you may have learnt today, because ideas remain exactly that, without action. If you'd like to support the work I do for small businesses and want even more of me, or at least my marketing knowledge, then check out my exclusive business owner membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. Membership starts at $8.50 a month, so pretty cheap. Next week, you and I catch up with a great old mate of mine in Troy Dean, who's an absolute weapon when it comes to marketing, digital marketing specifically. We chat AI, chat GPT specifically, plus we go deep into how you can make best use of video marketing in your business. Troy's a weapon at both those topics. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app where you'll find 628 more chats with successful business founders. Big thanks to Alex for the wonderful edit and to in-house rock star Lockie Doley for the wonderful music bed. Most importantly, a big thanks to you for carving out some time to take a listen. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.